What's happening, everybody? And thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Crash Bang Boom podcast. For episode 249, we have drummer Dan Sneddon of Oakland's own Kowloon City. It's definitely a good convo and got to delve into the process of recording their new record, Piecework, as well as his time playing with Early Graves, Dale Krover as an influence, some of the Bay Area punk bands he was into growing up, and a whole lot more. So I hope y'all dig it. Crash Bang Boom podcast can be found on iTunes Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Luminary, Google Play, Podbean, and Amazon Music Podcast, to name a few. Feel free to check out the previous 240 plus episodes and give me a like, a subscription, and or a positive review, as the support is appreciated. Thanks to everybody that's hung with me thus far. So here we go. Dan Sneddon, Kowloon Walled City. Piecework out everywhere. Crash Bang Boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
Yeah! All right, I'm here with Dan Sneddon of Kowloon Walled City. New album, Piecework, out as of October 8th. Congrats on that. But Dan, how are you doing, my dude?
Doing good, Jody. Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. I dig the new record. I've been a fan of the band. I think I probably started around Container Ships and then, just been rocking it ever since. But it was really, like, when it came out, it reminded me of a few bands, and we'll get into some of sort of what it reminded me, and then I can kind of pick your brain as to some of the influences that you have and or the band has as well. But just starting off, man, about how long, I guess, have you been with the band? I know this is the first record that you're on, to my understanding, but it was also 6 years ago that Kowloon Walled City put their last record out. So I believe it sounds like you've been with the band just about since then and been writing and trying to get this record together and everything. But so I guess tell me a little bit about what's been going on the last 6 or so years that you've been playing with the band.
I think I joined the band about 5 years ago. We were still touring on Grievances and stuff and playing those songs. And then we got home from kind of doing all that and settled in and started writing the new record. So that started about, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago. Like I said, time is all mushing together these days.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm not good at recalling the timeline, but something like that, something in there.
Gotcha. So you're touring on Grievances. You start writing at some point. Then obviously there's a year and a half where everything gets a little even that much screwier between COVID and everything else. I guess going back to when you actually recorded your drums, tell me a little bit about, I guess, the experience of recording the record, where you recorded it and just sort of how the whole session went. And then we can even talk a little bit about the kit that you use, because I feel like that band is very tone specific. So we can get into that too.
Right. So we recorded with Scott at Sharkbite Studios here in Oakland. It's adjacent to our practice space, which is awesome.
Nice.
It's in the same building. It's a really nice room, really big room, great sounds in there. Scott obviously has a lot of experience there and also is really good at getting great sounds anyways. So it's a good combination for huge sounds when you mix those two things.
Yeah, for sure.
Leading up to writing the record, I was still kind of getting used to playing this kind of material, because previously I've been playing in like punk and metal bands like my whole life, my whole drumming life.
Had to dial it back a notch to hang with these slow tempos at times, man.
Yeah, it definitely. At first, it definitely felt like my brain was being pulled apart.
Yeah.
Like the first, couple shows or tours I did with the band was like a good trial by fire kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I practiced a lot by myself, just playing to a click really slow and just, So I was still kind of getting used to that. I was still kind of finding my sweet spot. I could play shows and everything, but like playing new songs, you gotta you gotta play it like you mean it. I feel like I was playing the old songs just like Jeff did before me, just trying to do my best job of playing Jeff's parts, which are really good. And he's got an amazing feel for these songs, obviously. So at first I was just doing that. And then once we started writing, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to like do better than that. Like I'm going to have to do my version of that. So yeah, there was just kind of settling in to the new stuff and just getting really comfortable with it. And we practiced a lot. So that helped. I mean, I don't know how personal you get on this show, but I mean, I don't care. I think it's a good anecdote for the record.
Sure.
So I had been kind of, drinking a little too much, probably way too much.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time when we were writing the record. So I'd come to practice, and I'm usually try to be prepared and a good band member. So I was there trying to be present, but when you're like having a couple beers while you're at practice, you're not like as with it as everybody else. So
Right.
I was doing my best. And then a bunch of stuff happened, like in my personal life, a bunch of stuff happened, and all bad pretty much. And I ended up becoming sober the week before we went into the studio to record the album.
Oh, wow.
I just remember when we started tracking this thing, like the first couple songs we ran through, we all play live in a room when we record. It's really cool.
Nice.
It's just like, it's organic, and it's, it feels comfortable because you've been practicing it. So it's kind of the same thing.
Right.
You're not in this weird microscope where it's like, okay, we're just recording you right now, which I've done that a million times, and that's okay. I've gotten used to it. But so anyways, we all start playing. I finish a couple takes of like a couple songs that we've got really nailed down.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just coming pretty naturally, and I felt really good. And I was like, wow, I don't think I'm going to play that any better. Like Scott was like, how was that, everybody? I'm like, I don't think I can play that any better. Like that was good.
Wow.
And I went outside and had like a cigarette, and I was like, man, I feel like all that stuff that happened that kind of led up to this was like, for, it sounds cheesy, but like for a reason. Like I'm like, oh, I'm here, I'm like present, playing all this stuff, feeling really good about it. Like I've just felt kind of in my wheelhouse all of a sudden. So it was a good turn of events, and recording was awesome.
I mean, so it sounds like that you had a little bit of clarity that was maybe unexpected, and that your instincts maybe not being a little fogged, so to speak, ended up being a good thing, and you were in a good place to actually record this thing.
Absolutely, yeah. Clarity is a good word. That's like how I felt. I was like, wow, I have all of a sudden just like this straight line. Like I'm like, all right, sit back and play and enjoy the recording experience. The songs are kind of bummer jams.
Right.
But it's easy to sink, like to get into that, like that mode, especially with all that going on. So I feel like it was really easy to just like channel all of it. So not to make it sound too dramatic, but this is just how it went for me. That was my experience doing the drums.
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, for sure. You mentioned, playing along to click tracks at slower tempos will sort of help you figure out how to play such slow tempos. But with Kowloon Walled City, kind of similar to the Melvins, or at least sort of with the way Dale Krover plays kind of slower stuff, to where maybe you don't sort of display time so much with a particular pulse with right hand, left hand, whatever you lead. And it's a lot of bass, snare, big, bombastic with space in it. And that's trying to get that to work without displaying time, where you sort of have a real sense of the subdivisions. It's just hard, man. That is a hard way to play.
Yeah, definitely. Stoked you mentioned Dale Krover, because like he's like my compass for how to play slow shit.
100%.
Rad. Yeah, that's what I think. Like I like violent drummers, and he makes it sound slow but violent. And that was my go-to inspiration to pull from when I joined this band. I was like, oh, okay, well that's the way you do it. Yeah,
it's funny, man, because I've been to some Doom shows, and I'm like, oh, I can hear maybe the Melvins influence in here, and maybe it's just drummer-centric perspective. I hear sort of that similar approach that I'm talking about, but I think Dale obviously did that so well that he's sort of this omnipresent drum influence with some of these slower, heavier bands. So I totally get it.
Totally. And also, like, yeah, you brought up the metronome thing, which it's like practicing to a metronome is good, but like when you play this kind of music, you don't want it to sound machine-like. Right. And again, Dale Krover, like it sounds organic, but not in a, sometimes people say organic as like a euphemism for like not airtight.
Right.
And that's not what I mean. It's airtight, but vibe wise, and it's not machine like in terms of too tied to a grid, because that can sound, it works for some things, like Meshuggah sounding like they're tied to a grid is amazing. It's the best thing I've ever heard. But but the Melvins are like free flowing, and like that's also kind of important. Like, so I practice to a click, but tried not to sound like I was practicing to a click, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny. I think y'all have a little bit of maybe that darkness that Neurosis has, another Oakland band. And then to my ear, because I was a fan of kind of some of those bands in the 90s, early 2000s, bands like Polvo, some of that sort of atonal, like kind of weird darkness thing happening. It's when I listen to Kowloon Wall City, I kind of hear all of those, and I dig all those bands. So it's kind of cool that from my perspective, that's sort of what I hear in it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and you're right on. I mean, it's definitely there. It's the Neurosis thing has definitely been mentioned before, obviously, and we're on their their label and everything. And
I didn't even realize that. That's funny.
Yeah, we're on their label. We did a
Nice.
tour with them. I mean, they're obviously like some of the best to ever do music. So
Yeah.
and like I don't listen to a lot of slow bands, but the ones I do, like I said, like I like slow to be kind of violent, and like the Melvins are one, and Neurosis is obviously violent and also intense.
And absolutely.
I feel like people say that about slow music a lot. They say it's intense, and then a lot of times I'm just kind of like, it's just slow, so it's kind of like demanding you go with it, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's intense. That just
Right.
I don't mean anyone in particular. I don't listen to a whole lot of slow music because sometimes it just doesn't. I can't go there with it. But if it's Neurosis or Melvins or stuff, that's like it's the guiding light. Just follow those guys, and you'll be all right.
Yeah, for sure.
Just don't rip them off directly. That's when you go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, that could be said. I don't think y'all sound like the Melvins nor Neurosis really to me. There's just sort of, a little maybe conceptually even some of the things, which is cool. That's what you want. If you could pull that off, you're doing the right thing. You're giving them the nod, but you can still do your thing. That's it,
Yeah, that's awesome. Like conceptually, yeah, like when you don't try to sound exactly like another band, but you steal ideas from the band, that's fine,
Yeah.
It's like that saying, steal ideas, but don't steal the sound of a band.
Right. When tracking the drums, did you use the same kit that you had been using all along, sort of writing everything along the way?
Yeah, so I've been using the kit I've had the longest. I think I've had it since I was like 17 or something.
Wow.
It's a Tama Star Classic EFX, which is I think they only made that line for a couple of years. Huh. It's birch. I don't know how many ply. I don't get right. into it, but it's a birch kit. I had a custom 14 by 14 tom made, so it's a 14 by 14 and then a regular floor tom.
Yeah.
It's got a big old kick drum, a 24 by 18.
Damn.
I just love the way it sounds. It's like unique. It's like throaty and kind of mid-rangey. So like whenever it gets recorded, it's kind of my way of like guaranteeing I'm not going to get the super shreddy metal guitar version of drums. I don't want that.
Yeah. That would not work for this band.
No. So I love that kit because it just guarantees it kind of sounds like a Melvins. It's like it's just big and I love it. So that's the kit I used.
Nice.
All the way with the band, and then recording the record. And then actually, ironically, after the record, I ended up buying like 2 other kits in like a 6-month period.
Yeah, I hear you. I got one. I ordered one that I'm still waiting to get, and in the meantime bought an 80s Tama Superstar because that was my first kit. And
yes.
I wanted to get another one, and I bought them separately, but I got the 22 bass drum, the 13 tom, and the 16 floor tom. And there's definitely something to say about birch. I haven't owned a birch kit. I've had all sorts of other stuff, including Vista Lights, so acrylic kits and everything else in the meantime. But going back to birch, I was like, God damn, these things sound good. Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'm a fan for sure.
I have the same thing. Yeah, I have the 2 I bought are maple and they're rad. They're Ludwigs and I love them. But like the other day I hadn't played my Tama in a long time. And I went back to it and played it like 2 weeks ago. And I was like, oh yeah, this thing rules.
Thunderous.
Yeah. It's amazing.
That's awesome, man. I mean, Kowloon, I guess, predominantly based out of Oakland. Are you originally from Oakland?
Originally, I grew up in Santa Barbara.
Gotcha.
And then moved to the Bay Area a long time ago now. Like when I was like 20, 21.
Yeah.
I moved to Oakland and then promptly moved to San Francisco for like 15 years. Mm-hmm. and then moved back over here to Alameda, which is basically Oakland. It's right next door.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
When you were young, what was some of the stuff that you were into locally and or touring bands that were coming through that you were digging?
When I was real young, like first, getting into playing music, I mean,
Yeah.
I was really into music since I was really a little kid. But when I started getting into music in terms of like, I want to play music, I was the right age for all the Epitaph Fat Records stuff.
Right.
And, I lived in Santa Barbara, which is essentially a Southern California type city.
Uh-huh.
So, anything that was like Bad Religion, No Effects.
Right.
I even listened to Pennywise when I was like, 12. That's my excuse now. So all that kind of stuff, and specifically the bands that I listened to, like, Lagwagon was from Santa Barbara, so that was a band I really liked when I was that age, and I especially liked that band, one, because they were from my hometown, and two, their drummer absolutely ripped.
Nice.
I don't know if you've heard any of the early, like the Lagwagon stuff.
No, I gotta check it out.
Man, I don't know how much you're into like that kind of punk, like, but Trashed and the early albums. The drummer has passed away since, sadly, but
Okay.
he's on those first few records, and the drumming is, for that kind of music, is pretty unique. It's like, it doesn't, a lot of those bands sounded pretty similar,
Right.
drum wise.
Yeah, for sure.
He does those beats, but he also throws in some pre-Mastodon type fills and parts.
Right.
But anyways, yeah, that's the stuff I was listening to, like right when I started playing drums is that's the kind of thing I wanted to play. That's kind of what it got me in. And then Nirvana, like,
of course,
and
early
Metallica.
90s.
Yeah, it's just that stuff was more like too far away from like what I was going to be able to play. Like Metallica was like my favorite band when I was a kid, but I didn't hear that and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to just go play that on drums real quick.
Right.
But for some reason, the No Effects stuff, you could like get close enough to a punk beat and start a band with your other 13-year-old friends, and it was good enough,
Yeah, that's funny, man. Do you remember what do you remember about your first gig?
First gig was a house party.
Nice.
I was in a band that was basically like a combination of Nirvana and Bad Religion ripoff.
Okay.
I think I was 14.
Yeah.
And we just played at someone's house. For some reason, there was beer there.
Yay.
Yeah. I mean, 14-year-olds drinking beer is questionable, but like, that was the first show I remember.
That's funny.
Oh yeah. No, it was just like songs that sounded just like early Incesticide, Nirvana, stuff like that.
Right. Oh man, I know. I've spoken about it over the years, sort of unearthing some of the early demo tapes of my early bands, and it's just the way that it goes. I mean, early on, it's pretty hard to not sound derivative to some extent, and more often than not, it sounds completely derivative. You're just an extension of your influences, and you haven't had the time, wherewithal, or anything else to develop it on your own voice. So it's the way it goes, but it doesn't make it less painful to go back and listen to some of it, is what I guess I'm saying here.
Obviously this is pre everything was being recorded, so I can't find any of it, and I'm so glad about that.
That's funny, man. My God. So like, I guess you had mentioned kind of doing like the punk and metal thing leading up to Kowloon Walled City. What's some of the other bands that you were in, and maybe some of the scenes that you were in, and any of that stuff?
Yeah. So, I listened to that kind of punk stuff, and then it kind of transitioned I got into like hardcore, a lot more hardcore and a lot more metal. I mean, I had always I had, tapes of Bad Brains and Minor Threat and stuff, but then got a little more into like 90s hardcore stuff. I was into a lot of straight edge hardcore, and I was definitely not a straight edge kid, which is really funny.
Right.
But I just loved, I don't know, something about it I liked. And then, I got into more Slayer, Sepultura type of stuff.
Right.
And then, so I kind of played in various bands around that time. And then when I moved to the Bay is kind of when I started playing in bands that were more, people who had been playing longer, and we were able to kind of try not just mimicking other bands, like trying to do everyone was good enough at their instrument to try and like add their own.
Of course.
flavor and make something new. So I was in a few bands like that, and then I joined Apiary, which was like a pre-existing band from the Bay Area. People who like the guys who started the band really like Meshuggah and Dillinger,
Nice.
and so is that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Joined that band, and then did like a few tours with them, and then we quickly kind of like took the reins of that band after some of the founding members quit, and kept the guys we were all kind of musically on the same page, and we kind of converted that into a band called Early Graves.
Oh yeah.
So that was my main band for a while,
gotcha.
Years and years and years. And that's like a mix of the way I like to think of it, the way what we were trying to do was like 80s hardcore mixed with Entombed and Discharge, the cool punk parts of death metal mixed with the cool punk parts of hardcore and blast beats and stuff. And
nice.
So we did that for a while, and then took a break with Early Graves after we put out an album called Red Horse. And then I think I basically quit that band 2 years after that, and was just kind of, I don't even remember what I was doing, honestly. But I had known Scott and Ian and John I had known since I very first came to the Bay Area. Me and John played in bands long time ago, like 15 plus years ago. We tried a couple different bands that never really panned out.
Right.
So I was kind of just not doing a whole lot drumming wise, and they had gone through some drumming changes and stuff happened, and there was an opening. And since I knew John and Scott and Ian a little bit, they gave me a call, and I was happy to try it out and see if it would fit.
Crazy.
See if I was a fit for them.
Yeah. That's interesting that you play with Early Graves, man, which I didn't really realize prior to talking to you. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did y'all ever go out with Gaza?
We definitely did.
Yeah. Did y'all come through Brooklyn at some point?
I'm sure we did. We toured a lot in that band, but probably too much.
Right. That's crazy. Yeah. Casey Hansen, and obviously that band became cult leader for the most part. Man, Casey's such an intense drummer. My God.
Oh, that dude rips. Yeah.
Jesus.
He's awesome.
Yeah, I've described it as like, that some people say that there are drummers who sort of utilize the upper arm playing. I don't know that I've ever seen use more upper arm playing than that guy. It's just straight crushing, like a full-on upper arm assault.
Yeah, I feel bad for his drums.
Totally. I was like, that looks expensive.
yeah, I know. That's what I just add up broken cymbals in my head, like little price tags floating over the cymbals.
Yeah.
The first tour we did with them was some package tour that like fell apart. It was totally terribly organized, and but I think we ended up having fun, and we had good times with those guys. Yeah, I just remember just every time watching them play, just afterwards, just being like, dude, you're making everyone else look bad. Please stop.
Oh man, that's wild. We're between Early Graves or even some of your other bands. It's a question that I ask all the time, because while the answers differ, they're all equally pretty hilarious generally. But are there any particularly bizarre shows you recall playing on any of those early tours?
Oh my God, Early Graves touring career is one big bizarre show after another. I can't even, like, there's so many things that have happened to that band, and things that we have done to ourselves. I do remember a show we played where it was some not well organized festival, and it was in like an indoor skating rink or something like that.
Yeah.
And they had like they'd like made a big stage with like a truss and everything, and it was like way too much for like an all ages hometown band festival thing.
Right.
And we were playing it, and at one point, he's going to be bummed I'm telling the story, but there's no names or anything, and no one's going to remember the particular event. But our other guitar player, who's not Chris, I'm not going to say his name, but he was walking backstage, and he tripped over a cable that basically killed power to the entire stage and everything.
Oh my God.
And I don't think he realized he did it. I don't know if I realized he did it. We just were like, he tripped on something, and then like I think the music stopped or something, and then we kept walking outside, and then like I think I poked my head back in, and people were running around trying to figure out what happened. I was like, I think he tripped over the
fucked the whole show.
Yeah, I think they figured it out eventually, but
oh man, that's good stuff. Yeah. It's funny going out, man, when you just don't really know much better, and you know, maybe financially you're not too worried about taking a loss, which often so many times that's what it results in. But just the bizarreness that ensues when you put yourself out there like that, it's just infinite. It seems it's just constant.
Yeah, we were just, I think all of us we were like just happy to be out there doing it. I mean, I know personally, I don't care what the repercussions are. I've wanted to do this my whole life. So like, I don't really care money or not or whatever, but
yeah.
And I think we were all kind of had that same spirit. So we ended up in a lot of situations that tested like, are you sure you want to go all in on this, like regardless of the consequences? Because we'll show you consequences.
Right.
Universe is good at that.
Right. It really is, man. Over the course of the COVID times, were you able to practice much? Did you go down any strange wormholes or get into any sort of musical or film or art obsessions? What did you do with yourself?
I actually went down a pretty positive wormhole. So when COVID was at the like right when it started making everybody really just like for the first time unsure about what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Our practice space had to close down, and I freaked out. I panicked because I practice almost every day. It's kind of it's like how I keep my head straight, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
And when I heard that, I literally panicked. I was at work when I got the email, and it was like 8 a.m. or something. And I literally left, like I looked up where I could find an electronic drum set, and I literally bounced from work at like 9 o'clock, drove to buy an electric kit.
Yeah.
Went home. Well, I went back to work with the kit, but I just wanted to make sure I bought it before someone else got the idea or whatever. Sure. So I went home and set it up. It actually ended up being a really awesome, eye-opening thing because, I mean, I'd always, dicked around on Electric Kit and Guitar Center for a few minutes. Mm-hmm. But once I was kind of trying to recreate the same practicing alone vibe, I started playing the kit, and I mean, I've always had pretty bad technique.
Yeah.
just kind of wailing on the drums. And I kind of started to realize you can't do that. Like electric drums are going to put out about the same sound, no matter how hard or soft you hit them. And I was like trying not to like bum out my neighbors by whacking these things really hard. So I was like, I need to like find a way to hit softer and more controlled. And I did that for, a few months, and then our practice space opened up, and I came back in to play drums, and I was like playing the drums again in a completely different way. And I was like, oh wow, this is awesome. I had kind of relaxed my hands, wasn't gripping so hard. And I probably watched like 500 horror movies.
Wow.
Which I might've done without a pandemic, but
right. Yeah.
I think I watched Demolition Man probably like 12 times.
Impressive.
Which I also probably would have done without a pandemic.
Yeah.
I love that movie. But yeah, my takeaway, like what I remember about the lockdown was coming out of it with an improved technique, and then also like an idea of how to keep going with that and get better, like what I needed to do. So that's kind of that was my takeaway from the lockdown.
Nice, man. Yeah. Well, hot damn, Dan, look at you making a couple of strong decisions between getting an electronic kit and ironing out some ergonomic issues, as well as getting sober before you track the drums and nailing that as well. It sounds like you're just nailing some shit, man.
Yeah, I made none for a long time, and then I decided to start making a couple. So.
Right, yeah. That's awesome. What is going on in 2022? Are there any tours on the horizon, or any things happening that you can even announce without cursing it or otherwise?
Yeah. We have ideas of a tour, I believe in spring, but they're on hold at the moment. So I don't know if that's
Gotcha.
for sure. We're doing a record release show is in San Francisco and Oakland. And we're doing a double header. So we're playing a matinee in San Francisco of the whole album and then a couple bangers off old albums.
Yeah.
And then heading over to Oakland and playing a regular night show, playing the record again, and then a bunch of different bangers from, or not bangers, sorry, bummer jams.
Banger bummer jams.
Yeah, exactly. That's set in stone, as far as I know.
Nice.
I probably shouldn't say that because I probably just jinxed it.
No.
And then I think we're going to do some Pacific Northwest stuff that's still floating around, but probably likely going to happen in January.
Okay, awesome.
But nothing concrete, but it's very likely all that stuff's going to happen.
I have fingers crossed. Let's hope for it, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Where are you out of?
Yeah, I was in New York for 15 years, having originally moved from Louisiana. And then about just under a year ago, my wife and I actually moved out to Salt Lake City because she had a job opportunity out here. So we've been out here in the mountains mixing it up, and it's beautiful, and it's sometimes fucking treacherous, but it's at least mixing up the terrain, that's for sure.
Dude, I was just there. It's nice. I like it.
Well, that's crazy. What brought you out here?
We were going to a wedding, and then we just kind of made a trip out of it and did some camping and
Nice.
and just kind of, and we drove around Salt Lake for a little while, ate some there's some good vegan spots.
Nice.
I don't know if this is right, but Salt Lake seems to invest in like art or something,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, the way stuff looks, or I don't know if that's accurate, but I just got a vibe like they had like a good support for the arts.
It seems like it. I'm still trying to figure it out because I don't really know anybody in the town, so it's been hard to figure out where to go, what to do, et cetera, et cetera. And then I end up oftentimes just like hanging at the house and rocking records and getting loaded.
Yeah,
that seems to be a
that's fun too.
recurring theme since I've moved out here. Not to say that, as you mentioned earlier as well, that I wasn't doing that previously. It could have been
Right.
happening just anywhere else. I just happened to be doing the same thing that I was doing previously, now doing it in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, we all end up back doing what we do best.
You got it, man. Well, fingers crossed. Hopefully y'all can get back out there, play some shows, and do it to it. I know I'm certainly looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Great being on this podcast, and awesome talking to you, man.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to Dan for kicking it for an episode. Hope to catch Kowloon Walled City live sometime in the not-so-distant future. In the meantime, tune back in, and I'll keep cranking them out. Adios, muchachos. Crash, bang, boom.